Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, where we explore what it really means to live consciously. I'm Brent Roseborough, building designer, energy assessor, and the founder of Conscious Design Studio, where we take an integrated approach that brings together thoughtful design and building science to help everyday Australians create energy-efficient homes that are people-focused, cost-conscious, and built to last. From designing energy-efficient homes and low-impact architecture to growing your own food, embracing the circular economy, and finding smarter ways to reduce your waste, this podcast dives into all ways that we can live with greater intention, connection, and care for the planet. Whether you're renovating, rethinking your lifestyle, or just curious about sustainable living, you'll find practical ideas, inspiring stories, and honest conversations with everyday people making small changes that create a big impact. Welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Tim Forcey, energy assessor, best-selling author, and Australia's go-to expert on home electrification. In part 1, we explored why gas mightn't be the gold standard it's sold to be, and how small changes can dramatically improve comfort and energy efficiency. Today, we're diving into the how, from surprisingly affordable first steps to electrify your home, to navigating rebates, and the mind shift needed to break free from fossil fuels. So whether you rent, own, or maybe you're somewhere in between, this episode is packed with no-nonsense advice to help you start your electrification journey. Let's dive in. So Tim, for someone that's new to electrification and moving off gas, maybe considering retrofitting their home, where would you suggest they start?
Where would they suggest they start? Well, so if they're a Facebooker, they can get onto My Efficient Electric Home on Facebook and see what's going on. If they like to read books, they could read my book. You could get a professional in, such as myself or yourself, to offer them some advice. But the big 3 pieces of advice, well, there's heat with the air conditioner that you probably already own. So find the heat button on your air conditioner and give it a go. Make sure the filter's clean. There's filters in air conditioners, whether they're ducted or not ducted. So heating with the air conditioner is tip number 1. Tip number 2 is probably the draft proofing. So like I said, our homes are so drafty, just ridiculously so. And we could go on and on for an hour just talking about draft proofing and putting draft stoppers over your bathroom fans and plugging up the wall vents and feeling around the architraves of the windows. You'll find there's gaps behind the architraves because no one ever sealed them up properly. And then the more obvious things like the big gap under the front door, seal those up. You'll make a huge improvement in your comfort, reducing your energy bills. So draft proofing is probably like number 2. And number 3 is roof space insulation. So if you're able to look up in your roof space, if you've got a roof space, you might look up in there and you'll see, oh, I've got insulation, but you also see bare patches of plaster because, there might have been the halogen downlights, which were so hazardous they could burn your house down. And so they would keep the insulation well away, or the insulation wasn't installed properly in the first place, or someone else went up there to install the NBN or to install solar panels. And so they threw the insulation out of the way and never put it back. And you're left with these huge gaps. So that can be relatively low-hanging fruit to get that insulation back where it's meant to be and perhaps top it up. So those are usually like my top 3. And number 4 would be, go find out how old your hot water system is straight away. And if it's like 10 years old or more, you should definitely be investigating heat pumps and get one of those in, because you don't want to have to try to figure out the whole hot water heat pump world, on Christmas Eve when your gas hot water service fails. So be a bit more proactive. Like I say, if it's 10 years old or whatever, you might as well get onto a heat pump. It'll give you hot water at a third the cost of gas, or it's even better if you've got solar panels that you can run your hot water heat pump on a timer in the middle of the day. So that's very cheap hot water. You might as well get onto that. There's a lot of government rebates available for hot water heat pumps. Can even be government rebates available for air conditioners these days because governments want to support getting off gas. So that's probably the 4th one is the hot water system. Yeah, don't wait around to Christmas Eve to try to figure out what a hot water heat pump is.
What's your experience in terms of capacity? If you had a family of 4 or 5 with regular guests, are heat pumps an issue in terms of storage capacity or losing hot water?
Now, they can do the job. So the first tip is check and see how much water your shower heads are using. Get a bucket. They should be using 8 liters of water or even less. There's shower heads that you can get to like the Methan Curie Satin Jet Ultra Low Flow, which only uses 4.5 liters a minute and can still give you a good shower because it's been engineered so you can have a good shower with a low water rate. It's not raining much down here in Melbourne anymore, so they're running the desal plant again. So we're actually in a drought, even though you don't hear that much about it because we've got the desal plant. They can just fire that up and off you go. But check and make sure you're not using an excessive amount of hot water. And if you got the kids that are in the shower for long periods, definitely get them that Meson low flow shower head, and that will slow them down a little bit. But otherwise, it just comes down to you understanding how much hot water you use. And sure, if you've got a bigger family, well, then get a hot water heat pump that's got the biggest tank. They usually come with a larger or small, so you're going to want to get the large. And the worst case is if you're using a lot of hot water, you won't set it up on a timer. In our home, it's just my wife and myself and occasional visitors, and occasionally we might have multiple showers if I'm out doing the gardening or something. And ours is on a timer, and that works fine. So our heat pump will come on at about 11. It'll run for 2 or 3 hours. It's only using like 800 watts, less than a hairdryer. And so then it'll make sure that the whole big tank is full of hot water. It's kind of like a battery in a way. It's a thermal battery. We store energy from the middle of the day, and then I'll have a shower at 7 o'clock the next morning because it stayed hot in the tank. But if you're using a lot of hot water, you just won't bother with the timer, and then the thing will keep up with you. There's a thermostat in there. The hot water comes out the top, cold comes in the bottom. Hot water floats on cold because it's lighter. But anyway, the hot water, as you use the hot water, it goes out the top, the cold comes in the bottom until it hits the thermostat, and then the thing's going to fire up, just the same as an electric resistive system works or a gas system works. It'll just start up and keep up with you as you use the hot water. So now with 140,000 members at My Efficient Electric Home, we're not hearing many complaints, if any at all, about people running out of hot water. I mean, my son did it. They had like a 300-liter tank, and they must have put like 300 liters of hot water into the tub. So baths can be something that you need to think about. So he put all this hot water into the tub, and then the water went cold, and he said, "Get over here and take it off a timer," because my daughter-in-law wasn't pleased, and that's fine. So we took it off the timer. Big deal. It's still very cheap hot water, even if you're not using your solar all the time on a timer.
Incredibly cheap. I mean, if you were to compare, that 800 watts to your, a panel heater or an old traditional electric tank system, it's substantially cheaper to run. And I must say, having a heat pump, we've gone from an electric storage unit to gas instantaneous and then to an electric heat pump. And the difference is incredible. We've got hot water constantly, as I said, even with a family of 4 and regular guests. We haven't run out of water yet. The kids have a bath every night. It hasn't been a problem. That tank is, I think, 260 liters from memory.
Yeah.
So it's tremendous. And it certainly has been a massive contributor to the reduction of energy use in our house, which is great.
Gas unit, you had, a tankless, or they marketed it as instantaneous gas unit. Its big advantage is it has a small footprint. It's just something that can be attached to your wall. But the disadvantages are with those tankless gas units is every time you turn them on, there's a puff of unburned methane, and methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas. So that's sad that's the way they operate. And also they can be, even though they market them as instantaneous because of the opposite of that. When you turn them on, they have to think about it a little bit. They're like, "Do you really want hot water? Oh, okay, you want hot water. Okay, I'll start up." Boom, there's the puff of methane, the unburned methane from the gas. And then the whole system has to heat itself up. And then eventually you get hot water coming into the kitchen or the bathroom. Whereas a tank of hot water just sitting there waiting for you, that is true instantaneous hot water because it's a tank of hot water just sitting there waiting for you to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's running through a heat pump system, right? So it's drawing the heat from the outside air rather than trying to generate heat from scratch, which is a massive saving in terms of efficiency and means that you're not waiting anywhere near as long. So then when we look at electrification, there's another misconception there that it can be expensive, which is certainly not true. If you had only a few $100s to spend, what's the best move?
If I only had a few $100s to spend, it depends, how much you're up with the DIY. Yeah, in terms of overall comfort and energy bill reduction, and if I only had a couple $100, I'd probably be buying some draft proofing materials and doing some draft proofing. Oh, as you said before, a couple $100 or less could get you a portable induction cooktop. So if you are concerned about the health impacts of releasing gas and its combustion products into the home, yeah, a couple $100 or less could get you an induction cooktop. So that'd be pretty handy. I like to come back to, heating with the air conditioner you probably already own. And in some cases, I'll go into a house and I'll say, have you ever used the air conditioner for heating? No, we never used it. I'm like, well, let's give it a go. Where's the remote control? And they're like, oh, I don't know. We haven't used the thing since last summer. So let's look around for the remote control. We finally find the remote control. We push the buttons and nothing happens. Well, that's because the batteries are dead. So there, if for a few bucks, you can go get some new batteries, put them in the remote control and fire up your air conditioner for heating this winter. Look, the payback on those new batteries is about a day with the money that you'll save from heating. So there you go. That's like one of the fastest paybacks.
Yeah, and to add to that, as you touched on earlier, cleaning the filters is something that doesn't cost anything. Buying a couple of tubes of No More Gaps and sealing up those gaps and putting those draft seal strips on windows and doors are all really easy things you can do. And I guess it comes back to, though, just being mindful if you are pumping gas into the home, be mindful that, if you're sealing up all of these gaps, you're working towards transitioning away from those gas systems so that you're not then just trapping the gas in.
Well,
So,
sure. I did have clients that proudly showed me their carbon monoxide monitor. And I said, what do you have one of these for? And they said, well, they're about my age. And they said, we were falling asleep at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And we thought we're not old enough to be falling asleep at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And it turns out, yeah, their gas heater was putting out carbon monoxide and it was trying to kill them. So they had shut off the gas heater and were using the air conditioner from that point. But they still had the carbon monoxide monitor, even though they're not going to need it anymore.
so does electrification have to be all or nothing, or can it be a gradual thing?
Does it have to be all or nothing? No, of course not. I mean, like I said, definitely get into the heating with the air conditioner because that's a big cost over winter. And look, the air conditioner can be a handy thing to have in summer, the next summer as well. The planet's getting hotter. I mean, a lot of my clients have been sort of the greenie types who they're like, oh, we've never had an air conditioner. We've gone without it. And I'm like, well, okay, great. But it's your cheapest and cleanest way to heat in the wintertime. So get one. And then if you want to use it in the summer, go ahead. I'm not going to tell anybody. So yeah, definitely get onto the air conditioner for the heating. Your heat pump, your hot water heat pump. Again, like I said, how old is your hot water service? It's going to die someday. So you need to be proactive and understand what heat pumps are and what rebates are available out there and what you might get. And then you might just decide to do it. And then likewise, get off the gas cooking. Why do you want to, potentially introduce any sort of health issues into your home? As you said, for less than $100, you can get an induction cooktop and be cooking without gas straight away. We did that. It was a while before we had to do a bit of a mini kitchen renovation to finally get set up with the permanently installed induction cooktop. But before that, we got by with the portable. We still have it. Sometimes we loan it out to people to show them what it's about. Or if for some reason I wanted to cook pumpkin soup on a 40-degree day, it was just a portable hot plate. I take it outside and then we can cook things outside on a hot day. So it's very handy to have a portable induction cooktop. And in
Yeah.
fact, I've been in restaurants, Asian restaurants in Melbourne, and every table has its own induction cooktop to be cooking one particular dish. So that's the way they do it these days. And back in the kitchen, they probably have induction as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you see commercial kitchens, moving more and more towards all electric systems.
Again, it's, the really reliable controllability, to cook something on 12, what 12 is going to do for you, or 6. And then also it reduces the heat load in a kitchen. So when you're cooking with gas, a lot of the heat just goes around the pot and it's into the kitchen. Of course, you have to have ventilation to try to get rid of it, but it's just giving off all this massive heat because it's so inefficient. Whereas induction is as efficient as you can be. It just heats up the pot. And so a lot of kitchens are finding, whoa, our kitchens are a lot cooler than they used to be thanks to this technology. The same goes in your own kitchen at home. Yeah, things will just be cooler cooking with induction, which means on a summer day, you need to run the air conditioner less to remove the heat, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a win-win-win.
Yeah, and I think there's an element of being a bit strategic when you're talking about appliances. sort of creating their own heat. Like, for instance, we find that we often don't have to turn on the reverse cycle, particularly during the day. If we have a dryer load to do, we've got a heat pump dryer, we'll chuck a load in the heat pump dryer, and that will be plenty in terms of heating up the house. So sometimes you get a little bit innovative with electrification, and we've found that that's a really, really easy little hack to do. We've already got washing to dry or whatnot. And I guess the better side of that is we're using electricity during the day as opposed to at night. So you've touched on a little bit about retrofitting your own house and moving towards electrification yourself. What does your house look like now compared to what it did before?
Yeah, well, when we bought it in, 1994, so that's a few years ago. And like I said, it started as a 1905 weatherboard sort of thing. The first thing we did, just kind of interesting story, is we bought the place. Okay, we needed a couple more bedrooms because the house wasn't very big. So we went out and put a couple bedrooms up here, and then an office right now. And back in those days, 1994, I have an accent. I grew up in North America, and my folks had triple glazed windows in the 1970s, right? But in Melbourne in 1994, I'm like, are we going to put in double glazed windows? And the builder says, nah, we don't need those here. The climate's very mild and energy's cheap, which was true back then. And you couldn't find them anyway. So, I'm still sitting in a room here with single glazed windows upstairs. But downstairs, we had the opportunity with some later renovations where we put in some double glazed windows downstairs. So that's very nice. But otherwise, yeah, these days, all the walls are insulated. The roof is well insulated. Underfloor, if I wasn't here talking to you, I might be digging under the house, trying to put some underfloor insulation under there, but it's quite low to the ground. And so that's the home's biggest flaw. But as I said, even on the coldest winter day, we're only spending $1.50 of electricity into the air conditioners to make the place comfortable. And that compares with other homes that might be spending $10 or $20 or $30 a day trying to accomplish the same thing.
I think that comes with that combined approach, doesn't it? If you've got your insulation correct, you've got that draft ceiling correct, that'll mean that your air conditioning systems are working much more efficiently. That we certainly find that we only need to turn them on for an hour or two at most, and the house stays at a stable temperature the rest of the day if it needs to come on at all. So it does make a really substantial difference. And I think, as you touched on, it is incremental in that sense that you are gradually making your home more and more efficient as you look to put that last bit of insulation in the subfloor, as you were talking about, or you might, down the track, upgrade those upper level windows to double glazing, etc. So it can be gradual, and it doesn't need to all sort of be instantaneous. It's important to do, what you can with what you can afford, but it can certainly be a gradual change.
Sure. That whole story, like I said, there's a graph in my book about our house, and it starts in 2008. So we didn't do everything in a year, and we weren't the first ones to electrify, not by any means. Like I said, we just got an electric car. We didn't get an electric car 10 years ago like some of my friends did. So it's not like we're an early adopter, but we got there in the end, and it's a story you can tell. So with the solar panels and everything, we only have 7.5 kilowatt capacity of solar panels. And we have it all a luxury item, an electrically heated spa. Put all that together before the electric car came into the garage. Our electricity bills were about $600 a year only. You pay about $1 to be connected to the electricity grid, so that's $365. And so the rest is a pretty small electricity bill overall for a house plus the spa. Now the electric car will change that a bit, and I'll come up with some data a year from now when we see how we went with a year with the electric car. But yeah, the energy bills are really, quite small these days, but that makes it hard to justify further improvements. Do I want to get, some more double glazed windows or insulate under the floor or add something else? You can't justify it economically, but you do it more for comfort reasons. I'd definitely be happier with an even warmer floor in the wintertime. And that can be a justification for things like improving the underfloor insulation.
It certainly sounds like a great problem to have.
Mm.
Yeah. Were there any surprises or lessons from doing it all yourself?
I suppose one of the interesting things is, I mentioned it at Melbourne Uni, we worked out that you could heat our house with an air conditioner for a third the cost of gas. And of course, I was sitting there at home with the ducted gas heating. And so we worked that out, and you're like, I suppose I should go to do this in my own house. And plus, for the first time, we were going to get the air conditioners for summer cooling. So we were one of those people that we got by. Oh, we had an ancient old air conditioner banger in the wall sort of thing that kind of came with the house, and it would put out some cooling. but it almost would cause a blackout in the neighborhood every time it came on. It was so old. So anyway, yeah, we obviously wanted to get some efficient, modern summer cooling, but along with that, it was like, well, you did these numbers in Melbourne Uni about how cheap it's going to be, and so we put them in, and it was. I mean, we kept the ducted heating was still there for the first year. It's like, okay, let's try this, let's try that, let's experiment with that, and it was also good because I wrote down numbers and I wrote articles then about the transition by collecting the data. But probably what was the surprising thing, I guess, that even though you do the numbers theoretically, to actually do it in your own home and see it happening is pretty cool. And then when, then we started to get all the other case studies rolling in on the Facebook group, such as from Canberra, people saying we saved $1,200 a year. Well, that was exactly the number we calculated for an average house in Canberra. So it was great to see, what we worked out theoretically actually being experienced by people in their own homes.
Do you feel like rebates are making it more accessible for people?
Well, sure, and they attract a lot of attention, so people feel like they're missing out. Oh, go crikey! I just heard about this rebate thing. Well, then it attracts attention, so it's good for that. One policy, I know that in the ACT or in New South Wales, if you do get off gas and you want that the gas meter to disappear from your property, sometimes you can get stung with quite high fees, like $1,000 or $2,000, which is ridiculous. In Victoria, there was a time when, depending on which side of Melbourne you were on, it might cost you $50 to get rid of the gas meter. It might cost $500. And the government decided to come in and regulate and say that you can get rid of the gas meter in Victoria. You won't have to spend more than $220 plus GST. To me, it should have been $0, but they came in with this $220. Okay. In the ACT and New South Wales, you can spend more because there's kind of a monopoly of the gas suppliers there. And they must have lobbied the government successfully to put a bit of a sting in the tail if for people who want to try to do the right thing and get off gas. So that probably needs to be changed in those jurisdictions. Make it easier for people to get off gas rather than scaring them that there's going to be some big fee at the end.
That's right, because it's important to remember you're getting a supply charge as well, right? So even if you are off gas, you're still getting a supply charge just for having gas connected. And I guess, if there is such a big charge then to disconnect, it really disincentivizes people away from a complete disconnection and almost makes, gas mandatory in a sense. Zooming out a bit and looking at that big picture, do you think Australia is ready to go all electric? And if not, what's standing in the way?
Oh, Australia definitely should be ready to go all electric. And, so we've certainly done great things with all the solar panels, more penetration per capita, I think, than any other place in the world. So that's great. So yeah, let's keep going with that. Heat pumps are perfect for our climates. Yeah, heat pumps can be challenged if it's minus 30 degrees outside. They're not going to be absorbing quite so much heat from the environment if it's minus 30 degrees outside. There can be some challenges. But outside of Threadbow, our climates are pretty mild, and heat pumps, whether that's for, the reverse cycle air conditioners for heating your home or the heat pumps for the hot water, or even you can get heat pumps to heat your swimming pools. They're all going to work very well in our quite warm climate, and the climate's getting warmer all the time. So it just makes it easier for the heat pumps. There's a win. We're exporting like 85% of the gas produced in Australia. So it's, we've allowed the multinational corporations, such as the ones that used to pay my salary, to do that. It's like, here, have the gas, take it, do what you want with it. We certainly haven't looked after the local folks in terms of making gas available at a reasonable price. So fine, just ride with that. The options are cheaper anyway by a lot to electrify. Even if gas did get a bit cheaper in the country, that's not going to be a game changer. So yeah, electrification makes a lot of sense now. So you might as well get on with it. I mean, the electric cars are fun. So this morning is a sunny day in Melbourne. So we drove down to Geelong and back yesterday. The battery's only about half full. So we plug it into the wall. We're charging it basically for free because you can't get paid much for putting electricity back out onto the grid anymore. So use it, stick it into the car. It's great. So we saved $30 on petrol yesterday because we'll charge it pretty much for free today.
So Tim, a couple of heavy hitting questions to finish. What's keeping you hopeful right now?
What's keeping me hopeful? What is this book, for example, came out last year in June. And since then, I've attended 70 different events where I was asked to speak, and then like 50 different media things. So there's certainly a lot of community interest in this. So that keeps you hopeful that there is a lot of interest and a lot of people interested in making some changes, giving some hope to the younger generations. But on the other hand, it's May the 12th and we haven't even turned our heater on yet. So this is, the planet's warming up, and it's pretty scary to have temperatures like this on the 12th of May in Melbourne. That's not something that we're used to. It's more like a March day or an early April day rather than a mid-May day. So that's a bit scary. So yeah, you got those things. But on the other hand, you see where the planet's headed, and we're certainly not moving fast enough. So we just need to try to move faster and faster and faster on all these things. Maybe as people become interested in, improving their homes, at the same time, they can, join some sort of a protest and, tell the Labor government that they should not be approving new coal and gas mines and that sort of thing. So people may start looking at the littler picture in their own home. If that leads to them looking at the bigger picture and getting more active in their community, that would be useful.
What's one small thing that you do every day that has made a big impact on your life or the lives of others around you?
What I do, I go and look at the bloody Facebook group. So My Efficient Electric Home, we started that 10 years ago. It's got 142,000 members. In the last week, we've had 800 new members join. I just got a call from Aotearoa, New Zealand. So a fellow over there wants to start My Efficient Electric Home New Zealand, which is great. Go for it. Need to spread the word on all these sorts of things. So yeah, that's something I unfortunately do every day, probably before my breakfast, is you look on Facebook and there's someone, possibly asking the same question over again. What do you think of this quote for solar panels? But on the other hand, there could be questions of little wrinkles that, I never really thought about before. And so that's kind of, in my advanced age, that's kind of like continuing education. I continue to learn more things about what's going on in homes. And, I trained as a chemical engineer, so I'm not into the electrical stuff so much. But yeah, this whole battery situation and all the things to be doing with batteries, we're going to be hearing a heck of a lot about that because of the big federal government rebate. So that's going to be the story for the next year, I think, is everybody and their brothers saying, should I be getting a home battery? What sort? How do I get it wired in? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Continues to be a changing space where you can certainly learn something every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it emphasizes that, whilst there are all these rebates and resources out there, it's important to do your research and make sure you are well informed. And the My Efficient Electric Home page is a great resource to start with. So thanks so much for your time today, Tim. And to wrap up, where can people buy your book? Where can people find you and get in touch?
Oh yeah, so my name is Googleable, so you'll find my website. There may be one or two Tim Forceys in the world. That's about it. I think the other guy plays cricket in England or something. And the same with the book. Well, it's got a fairly unique title, so you can just Google that and you'll see where you can buy it online or at various stores or at the publisher, or even your library probably has it for loan as well. So yeah, have a read of that. It's quite conversational for so very little in the way of charts and graphs and numbers and facts and figures. It's more just conversations that I've had 1,000 times with people in their homes. And so it was actually quite easy to write because you just come out with the stories like we've been talking about here today. So yeah, hopefully people will find it useful.
That was my conversation with Tim Forcey, an advocate for smarter, healthier homes and a leading voice in helping Australians understand electrification. You'll find links to Tim's work and the My Efficient Electric Home Handbook in the show notes. At Conscious Design Studio, we create energy-efficient homes that are tailored to the way you live, comfortable, cost-effective, and designed with long-term performance in mind. Whether you're renovating, building new, or looking to improve your existing home, our integrated approach combines thoughtful design with in-house energy assessments to deliver spaces that work hard for you and the planet. Learn more at www.conscious-studio.com.au or follow us on socials at conscious.arc.studio. If you found this episode helpful, I'd love it if you followed the show, shared with a friend, or left a quick review. It really helps us to reach more people. In the next episode, I'm taking you behind the scenes of our own urban microfarm, a cold climate experiment that's transformed the way that we live and eat. From veggie beds to chickens to low maintenance growing methods, I'll be sharing the lessons that we've learned and how growing our own food has boosted our resilience and massively reduced our grocery bills. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Living Podcast, where small changes make a big impact.